Hi, I'm Jonathan Bank. I'm the Artistic Director of the Mint Theater Company. So in 2009, we did a production of a play by Lennox Robinson called Is Life Worth Living? I liked being part of the festival. There were, different shows at different venues, and there was a kind of a guidebook to all the different things. And, it felt great to be part of a community doing something. And I thought, well, I'd like to do something in the festival next fall. So I'll find a play. And Lennox Robinson, who was the author of the play I just mentioned, had written a history of the Abbey Theater, which it included a complete production history. I thought, I'm going to look for the women, because I knew that in the first years of the Abbey Theater, there was Lady Gregory. And I thought, there must be some other women. And I made a list of about 9 names, I think. But the one person who, first of all, her name appeared 6 times over the course of 6 years, between 1930 and 1936. And that was Teresa Deevy. And when I Googled her, boom, there were results, because she'd had a book published. And I read about her. She's got this profoundly interesting personal story, because Teresa Deevy lost her hearing due to Meniere's disease, which ran in the family. She lost her hearing when she was about 19. And she decided she wanted to become a playwright. How did that happen? Well, she knew she had to give up hopes of becoming a teacher. And so the way I understand the story, and I think this is accurate, but it's a little mythical too. She went to visit her sister, who also had Meniere's disease and was in London, and where they had a school that taught lip reading. Went to stay with her sister and study lip reading. And I guess at the school, all of the students were encouraged to go to the theater to practice lip reading. And you could read the play in advance, and then you can go and you could hold the script in your lap, whatever it was. And that's how she became interested in the theater. And she decided she wanted to write play. It's a callous for me to say, but I thought a great story is a great story. So, let's see if she also wrote good plays. And because as I said, she'd had a book published by Macmillan. There was a copy in circulation at the New York Public Library at Lincoln Center. I mean, I read about this, I got on the subway, I checked out the book, and I took it home. There were 3 plays in there, Katie Roach, King of Spain's Daughter, and The Wild Goose. But as I'm reading about Deevy, I hear the story of her rejected Abbey play, Wife to James Whelan. I said, well, let me find that. But I should say that I began reading Katie Roach, and I knew, 5 pages in, there was something. I just said, oh yeah, she's for real. There's a really unique, interesting, compelling voice here. The first play she had produced by the Abbey is lost, which is sad. The second play she had produced by the Abbey was called Temporal Powers. And I found a copy of Temporal Powers, which had been published in the 70s in a little pamphlet. There were probably 500 copies printed. I was able to find one online. And I finally found a copy of Wife to James Whelan, which had been lost for a decade. And I think it was in the attic at Landscape. And I read both of those plays, and I loved them both. And I couldn't decide which one I wanted to do. Realized that what I should do was do them both. And I thought, and I knew, I said, if I announce in advance that I'm going to do them both, people will pay attention. Somebody will pay attention. And I was right about that. And we ended up with the New York Times feature story and London Times feature story and Irish Times. And I thought to myself, I'll do Wieland first because that's got the best story, the neglected Abbey play. And if it doesn't go well, I'll just slink quietly away and nobody will say, what about that promise to do Temporal Powers? But it went better than well. That's the moment that it becomes the Deevy project. There's 2 plays, and I thought, and we do some readings. At the time of Temporal Powers, we published Volume 1, and I had promised Volume 2, which would be all of the short plays, and said, all right, now's the time to do another production and to bring out the final volume. And that was The Suitcase Under the Bed, the 4 short plays named after where all the typescripts had been. And that's sort of the story of the Deevy project. And I never considered the project finished. And I'm really thrilled now that the project continues in London with Wife to James Whelan.